everybody, this is Richard Sleigh, and today I'd like to talk to you about tone control when you're playing the harmonica, how you can create variations in tone by the way you manipulate your throat, your diaphragm, and the inside of your mouth. And why is this important? Because when you play the harmonica, a lot of the effect that you get is the tone of the instrument itself. And the more you can do to create variations in the tone as you're playing, the more of a range you have, the more emotion you can express. The difference between and is enormous, and we're going to focus on one basic element, which is just imagine that you have it's like a tone knob on a guitar amp. This is what we want to install in your operating system today. And we're going to start with some basics on the breathing. And to begin with, I need to put this camera down just a little bit. Okay, to begin with, a little bit more. You need to start with your foundation, which is down here around where your navel is, a little bit below your navel. There's a big dome-shaped muscle underneath your lungs called the diaphragm. And the diaphragm is what moves the air in your lungs. And it is also supported by your lower abdominal muscles. So if you tense those muscles, you'll begin to get in touch with them. You'll notice when you take a deep breath and then breathe out, if your belly is moving, you're engaging the diaphragm and those other support muscles, the lower abdominal muscles. So I always begin people with an exercise that I call the basic train rhythm, which is to create a double in breath and a double out breath. And you start by creating that articulation in your lower lung, in your lower abdominal muscles where your diaphragm is. So you're breathing in, pause, and then finish the breath. So you're breathing in, pausing, finishing the breath, double in breath. And then the out breath is the same process in reverse. So you want to make sure you're not cutting off the air here in your throat, like like it's sort of like a cough in your throat, or using tongue articulation like a ta-ta-ta. That's not what we're doing here. We're starting and stopping the breath down in the base of your lungs. And so this is the very, very first foundation is down here. And do this very slowly and deliberately, and at a very slow pace, and you can stay focused on these diaphragm muscles. So that's what we're going to be working with for the rest of this series right now today. So the next step is to make sure, also very basic, Make sure the harmonica is deep in your mouth and you're playing on holes 1 and 2. And I'm just opening my mouth a little bit and allowing the harmonica to sink deeply in my mouth. So I'm actually, my mouth is actually going over the harmonica about this much. And I'm keeping the harmonica relatively parallel. I'm not twisting it up or down. It's pretty much going into my mouth like that. So you want to listen to make sure you're not leaking any air around the outside. If you hear this kind of then you're losing control, and you're just not going to be able to get the kind of tone quality that you can when you've got a really good seal, a good gasket. Another thing you can do to check this is to, if you have a room with drywall, is stand in the corner and let the reflected sound go into your ears. You'll hear a lot more detail of the sound you're creating as you do this. And if you hear any of that air leaking, you need to just keep reconfiguring the harmonica in your mouth. You want the inside of your lips, the part that's moist and very pliable, to be what's contacting around these holes to get this good, solid. Okay, so that's important. Now the next thing is that when we go from bass tone to treble tone, what we're manipulating is the size of our throat and the inside of our mouth. And to get the bass tone, it's like if you have a guitar with a giant body and a guitar with a very tiny body, and they have the same set of strings, the one with the small body is going to sound more trebly than the one with the big body. Same's true with the harmonica. The rest of the body is right here. So what I'm going to do is a series of steps to go from what I call normal tone to bass tone. Okay, what I just did was I separated my teeth a little bit. I moved my lower jaw just forward a tiny bit. You don't want to overdo this, just a tiny bit. It opens up some more space in here. And the other thing that you can do while you're playing, and as a setup for playing, is to yawn. Nice, big, luxurious yawn, and you'll feel your entire throat expand and relax. Also, when you're doing this, if you watch yourself in the mirror and you see your shoulders creeping up, especially when you start playing faster, that's going to tighten everything up. So what you're going for is a relaxed upper body. Send all of that tension down to your lower abdominal muscles and that area, and give your muscles something to do with that desire to, do something. Let this part of your body stay as relaxed as possible. Okay, so separating my teeth, move my jaw slightly forward, relax my throat. Now I'm going to go from normal tone to bass tone using that process. So you hear the difference? Now, the next direction is what I call mosquito tone. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to make the inside of my mouth as small as possible. I still want to keep my throat relaxed, but I'm going to move my tongue up forward in my mouth, and I'm going to imagine that space in my mouth coming up very, very close to the harmonica. just think small. And you go from normal tone to so that's the principle, is the inside your mouth and inside your throat, you're going from big space to smaller space. And if you practice this with your train rhythm, then you will start to gain control over this. Now this basic process is going to work for you whether you're playing single notes with a pucker or single notes with tongue blocking. You can, once you get the basic principle and the idea in your head, then you can start manipulating your single notes. And go from that bass tone to that treble-y tone. It's much easier to start with these chords because when you're tongue blocking, you have your tongue on the instrument, and that gives you one more level of stuff you're dealing with. So once again, separate your teeth, move your lower jaw slightly forward, yawn, expand your throat. You can think yawn while you're playing to remind yourself to relax your upper body. It will open up your tone and make it sound more natural in general. And the combination of those things gives you the bass tone. You flip, you know, to create the treble tone, you're doing everything in reverse. You know, moving your teeth slightly more back together, retract your jaw, move your tongue forward, scrunch the inside of your mouth. Now, the other thing is that as you're experimenting with this, the other thing you want to listen for is, does your tone change noticeably from in-breath to out-breath? And here's another exercise you can do to really zero in on that. And now we're going to focus on single notes. On the diatonic harmonica, you can go from draw 2 to blow 3, and it's the same note. So I can go, and do they sound the same? And if I add some kind of vibrato, does it sound the same? So you can experiment with that. Okay, so that's another way you can work with this to balance out your tone and get your breathing working for you. I've watched people as they play notes on the harmonica, and some people unconsciously redo their embouchure for different notes. Like they might, as they go, instead of going, they might go more like, you know, like almost like resetting the harmonica for each note. You want to keep the embouchure the same, whether you're, you know, keep your mouth in the same place and move the air, breathe. Now you can also, this basic technique for developing the control of your diaphragm, lower abdominal muscles, throat, everything, also works on the chromatic. And on the chromatic, you can also do the single note exercise. You get better results on the lower notes. You can use whole 4 and the blow and the slide in draw note are the same note. Okay, so you can experiment with that and listen carefully. It's another good exercise to do in the corner, to listen for real fine variations of tone. And one of the other things you'll notice when you get a little deeper into this and listen carefully is that you'll start hearing overtones. You hear that dee-doo, dee-doo. And as you listen, you can also do this on the diatonic harmonica. It's like you have this fundamental, this basic low note, and then these other overtone notes riding above it. And you can learn to tune those in to your playing as part of the effect. So the more you get into this, the more interesting things you can do with the material you already know how to play. For example, one of the things that Rice Miller uses a lot in his playing to give it his distinctive style is he uses that mosquito tone. So he's got, instead of going, he's going, and using that real treble kind of tone to punch that note out in a different way. And the other thing you can do with this is you can use the big tone on the top end of the harmonica to take out some of the harshness of the highest notes. For example, okay, here's kind of mosquito tone. And then I'll open up. Okay, big tone. It has a much mellower sound as opposed to. So you can take out some of the harshness of the high end. You can add treble to the low end. There's a lot of different ways you can work with this. And if you spend some time woodshedding, working on this very targeted, like I've been showing you in this video, you can start putting a lot more tone color into your playing and take licks you already know and try playing them in all sorts of different ways, you know. You'll find lots of ways to work with this, and just take a song you already know and see how much new variation you can put into it. So there you go. Hope you found this useful. I will be posting more on the breathing exercises, other aspects of them. You can also use this to develop your timing, your rhythm. I have some materials on this subject at Hot Rod Harmonicas in the store, hotrodharmonicas.com. I've got harmonica lessons that deal with these kind of fundamentals and give you other exercises to work with. And you can also contact me if you have questions. I'll be back soon again with more. And thanks for listening. And I'll see you soon.